Hey there, happy Monday everybody! Happy Star Wars Day! But Doug, I hear you say, Star Wars Day is May 4th. Yes, the generally accepted date for Star Wars Day is May 4th, but I celebrate what I like to call Orthodox Star Wars Day. And Orthodox Star Wars Day is May 25th, because that's the day that the original film came out. So I was trying to come up with a Star Wars inspired ice cream, and the most obvious option is probably blue milk ice cream, bantha milk ice cream, but I thought that that was maybe a little too on the nose. So I'm digging a little bit deeper into the Star Wars lore, and if you have seen The Phantom Menace, there's a very just off random scene where Anakin buys a fruit called Pallies from a street vendor.
Here, you'll like these Pallies. Here.
Thank you.
And doing a little research, it sounds like Pallies are basically like desert figs or desert apricots. So we are going to try to make an apricots and cream inspired ice cream. Standard base of 1 cup whole milk, 1 cup heavy cream, 2/3 cup of sugar, a squeeze of vanilla bean paste, and a pinch of salt. This is roughly a cup of dried apricots that I have either halved or quartered. We're going to bring this whole mix up to a simmer, and I'm going to let those apricots steep for 20 minutes to a half an hour. I really want them to sort of give off a lot of their flavor. Okay, this is just starting to steam, so I will remove the spoon. We'll throw a lid on it and kill the heat, and we'll be back in 20 minutes. Okay, it has been a half an hour, and it looks like our apricots have plumped up a little bit. So I'm just going to get this warming up again. And now we have our 4 egg yolks that we will go ahead and temper. And right back in. Now, I know Phantom Menace gets a lot of grief being part of the prequel trilogy, but it actually holds a very special nostalgic place in my heart. I recognize the flaws, but I do enjoy it. It was the first Star Wars film that I saw in theaters as a new Star Wars fan. So it will always hold a special place in my heart. Now for this ice cream, I did opt to go with dried apricots. You could use fresh if you can find them. I struggled quite a bit, which is strange because it's the beginning of apricot season, so I didn't think I would struggle to find them. And then once I did, the price was ridiculous, so I opted to go with dried, which is fine because I'll end up eating the rest of the dried apricots. I actually really enjoy dried apricots. Alright, that looks fine. We're going to go ahead and kill the heat and slide it off. And I'm going to do a sort of a double strain here because I have another step that I want to complete, so I'm actually going to pour this off into my container. Oh, look, a mess! What a surprise. So now I'm going to strain back into my saucepan, which gives me an opportunity to really squeeze on these apricots and get any of that liquid that might be in them, any of that flavor. Let's get that into the ice cream because that's ultimately where we want it. And the reason for straining into the saucepan is because I have a 1/3 cup of apricot fruit spread. You could use apricot preserves here if you want. But I really just want to get a little bit more of that apricot flavor into our ice cream, and being able to stir it here in the saucepan really gives you an opportunity to see how well it's dissolving. And a flavor that goes really well with apricots is almond. So I'm going to use maybe a half teaspoon of almond extract. You could use amaretto liqueur if you have it. I don't, but I could understand where that would work well with this particular ice cream. And it looks like our fruit spread is fairly dissolved. Anything that's not dissolved will get worked out in the churning process. So we will go ahead and pour this into the container. And we'll go ahead and add our cream up to the 3 cup line. Give it a nice stir and a little taste. That's pretty nice. The fruit flavor is there, but it's a little bit in the background. We'll see how this churns up. Okay, it's time to get the apricot ice cream churning, and hopefully the force is with us on this one, and it turns out well. We will find out shortly. So looks like a lot of my apricot kind of stuck to the inside of the container, so just gotta get that shaken out, and we'll be back in half an hour. I think I'm going to improvise a change. So originally I had taken some of these dried apricots and threw in about a teaspoon and a half of rum that I still had left over from fruitcakes, and I was going to swirl those in. Instead, I think I'm going to take some more of these apricot preserves, and I'm going to try and swirl them in, fold them in with my spatula, just so we sort of have a nice ribbon of apricot. We'll see if it cooperates or not. And we can still use those reconstituted dried apricots for a topping. I might mix it in with a couple of the individual little containers. So I'm leaving the spatula in just in case there's any areas of apricot preserves that I missed getting nicely folded. And as I said, I'll go ahead and add just to a couple of these some of those dried apricots that have been reconstituted. And so the reason I soak them in rum is that it acts somewhat as an antifreeze. It should keep these apricots from turning into little shards of ice, as long as they're not chewy. And just so I know which ones have the pieces of APRICOT Star Wars. Okay, let's see how our Star Wars themed apricot ice cream turned out. It has a nice yielding squeeze. And again, a very nice looking scoop. And it's just melting very, very quickly, pretty much as soon as it hit the bowl.
I have a bad feeling about this.
Let's see how this tastes. Okay, texture-wise, this is very nice and smooth and creamy. I don't hit any chunks from the apricot preserves, so like none of them froze up solid or anything. As far as flavor, the very first thing that hits me is the almond extract. So I might have been a little heavy-handed with that because it's really upfront and bold, and the apricots really take a back seat to that, which is very disappointing. Don't get me wrong, it's really nice. So let's take some of those reconstituted dried apricots and just sprinkle a few on top. And let's see if that brings a little bit more apricot-y to the party. It does. It's definitely more fruity with the fruit added right on top. So the fruit is still a little chewy, as you would expect. You know, it's just reconstituted dried fruit. So that provides a nice textural contrast. And honestly, we used so little of that rum to reconstitute the apricots that you don't taste it. But no, that's good. The dried apricots really offset the almond flavor. It's not quite so overpowering with those on top. But overall, would I make this again? Not the way I made it. I definitely would do some things different. I would not use as much almond because it was just too much. Maybe bring in some more apricot, more preserves to really make that flavor a little more punchy. But, I mean, overall, it was pretty good. I liked it. Hope you all have a great Orthodox Star Wars day, and we'll see you next time. Bye!